Yes, it is true. The Black Ace Hockey Podcast is back in action. My name is Wayne Adams. I'm right here as always with your co-host Nick Jenkins. What's going on, man?
Dude, it's a sad day for your boy. I'm in two fantasy hockey leagues, and
no, not the Sully Cup.
I pride myself on being consistent. I've never missed playoffs in either league that I've been in. And I'm pretty darn consistent. And I got bounced in the first round in both leagues this year, so my season is done.
Unbelievable.
So we are starting the week on a sour note, but hey, that just means we're getting a first-time champion, which I always like to see. That's always kind of fun, right?
That's not ideal for the brand. I mean, technically, oh my goodness, this. Can you hear him? He's outside hauling with the just doing his damn thing. But
I can't hear him, but it does, like, your audio gets weird, but you can't hear the leaf blower.
Yeah. So I apologize in advance. But yeah, the Sully guy. I guess you explain it, Jenks. I don't know if we've actually thoroughly explained the Sully Cup and why it is such a coveted thing to maintain.
So the Sully Cup, this started, Jesus Christ, what year are we in now? This goes back to college. This ended up starting as a bunch of Gannon hockey guys. We wanted to start like a fantasy hockey league. It started just for fun, and then over the years it got more and more competitive. We had some churn of people, and it's gotten to the point now where a couple of years, well, I should say more than a couple of years, we've been doing this for like 7 years now. We bought a trophy for the league, and it's a really nice frickin' trophy. And we pass it around. You win the cup. You get your name on the cup. You come in last place. There is a last place punishment. So I know it's all for fun, but there's a big prize to be won at the end of it. You get your name on the trophy, win a little bit of a cash prize, and the league has gotten really, really good. I know you chose to bow out of it a couple of years ago.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't know how to stop this. It's at literally the end of the trade deadline. Those teams that are out of playoffs just start trading their top guys, and usually they only trade to two specific people, and it's just like, brother, like it's not fair to literally anybody else. Oh, but I'm trading away like my second guy. Yeah, but you're also getting a 95 million point scorer, so it's like, what do you do? And it got to a point where I'm like, every year it's the same thing. Like, technically, like, I think trade should happen. If a trade happens, you have to put like $1 per like person. Like, you trade 4 guys to his one, like you both have to put in $5 to like the end pot.
So what we did basically the year after you left, and it's been good the last 2 years, is we moved the trade deadline way up so that now it's harder to determine, like, if you think you're still in it, it's harder to say like, oh, I'm definitely out, because the trade deadline moved up to like early January.
Okay.
So we haven't had any issues like that because everybody's still sort of in it at that point. Nobody wants to throw their season away. So that seems to help. If you ever,
you never, like, what if one person's like, I'm gonna tank this year.
Well, I'll tell you, we had that issue in the fantasy football league that I run this year, and one of our favorite people has gotten himself suspended indefinitely from that league.
Okay.
Probably perma-banned from our fantasy football league because he tried to throw the season intentionally and give all of his good players to one person, and wasn't even trying to hide it. And I declined the trade, and then he went in and dropped his whole team to free agency and added only Steelers.
Nice.
So
nice.
his wide receiver 3 was like Roman Wilson or whoever that rookie kid was. Like, guy's got 1 catch per game on a good day.
Being the
So
commissions is a tough life. It's all you young fantasy owners out there. You want to be a commissioner. It's not an easy gig. You gotta play both sides. It's tough.
you just can't be afraid to be like, sometimes you just got to lay down the law and be like, this is how it's going to be. I am not
Yeah.
going to have any of this bullshit, and you just got to drop the hammer.
Yeah, what's nice
It's
about the Sally Cup is you added the an actual trophy this year, or not this year, 2021.
No, we had it before COVID. I think the first year we handed it out was 2019 because we had to
Yeah.
cancel the COVID season.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, it's actually pretty different than a lot of other leagues that are just kind of like for fun. It's you get a payout if you get first, payout second, and it's kind of like a free entry for third. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's a fun little thing that you put together, and it's glad it's still going. But some major hockey news as far as I think we're gonna dive into college first because it's kind of
yeah.
the focal point of the season so far, and then the wild card push we can talk out at the end. So, Jenks, why don't you give us a little breakdown of what happened last week in college, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so we had all of the conference tournaments finished last weekend. We had some, I'll say, in some cases, some surprising wins. This first one I'm looking at, and I know you and I were like, "There's no way in hell Holy Cross loses," but here we are, and Bentley is the Atlantic Hockey Champions, um, which puts them in a top 6 position in the tournament, I think,
Yeah,
because they want, yeah, so they'll open the tournament against Boston College.
yeah. I mean, but that's
So
an auto
that's
loss.
that,
You
yeah,
might as well
tough
just
draw,
sign
but
over your fate.
we'll get into the actual men's tournament for the Frozen Four here in a minute. But Bentley beats Holy Cross. It's a tough one for Holy Cross because they dominated that conference, and because of that loss, they're not even getting into the tournament
Because that
now,
conference is so bad.
because the
Like you
conference is
can't
so
auto
bad.
bid Holy Cross and then have Bentley in. There's just no way. That's
Like
too many easy wins.
I thought Holy Cross was going to definitely be the
Yeah.
representative from Atlantic, but here we are, and Bentley made it. So props to them. They finished strong. They gave Holy Cross a good game, winning 6-3, and they're going to get their shot in the tournament here. And we'll talk more about that, but a tough draw there for their opener. Um, let's see here where we at with the next. Let's go to the CCHA. So the final ended up being Minnesota State St. Thomas. I think this one was pretty easy to predict. Minnesota State walks away with this one, and makes their way into the tournament as well. Nobody else from that. I'm looking at the bracket. Doesn't look like anybody else from the CCHA made the tournament this year. ECAC Cornell actually can't believe that. I'm kind of surprised by the outcome here because so ECAC was one of the conferences that had their semifinal and final matchups of their tournament last weekend. Cornell beats Quinnipiac on Friday, and then Clarkson and Dartmouth. So the final is Clarkson and Cornell. Cornell takes they were what? What did they start out as their seed here? They were the 6th seed going into the tournament, so they had to play the qualifier first round, won the quarterfinals, won the semis against Quinnipiac, number 1 Quinnipiac, and ultimately the champion of this conference. So what a run they went on. They must have just found some heat there and rode it all the way to an ECAC championship this year, and now they're going to get a shot in the tournament as well. I think Quinnipiac also got an auto bid into the tournament too, so they'll still get their shot at the national championship, but a little bit floundered the conference there.
I think Quinnipiac usually always goes in. They usually have some high end talent just because they're kind of a well known name now. So it's kind of standard operation. I think Cornell, what you said is, I mean, when you beat the number 1, like that that conference, it's only like you have to win in
Yep.
order to get in, unless you're
Yep.
Quinnipiac every year. So it's
Yep.
like you're playing with more edge as in Quinnipiac's like brother like is we're already drafted. Like it don't even matter.
Right.
So like
Right.
Cornell's like shit. Like it's either this or an accounting job on Wall Street. So I I got to do this. So I think that there's a little more edge to everybody except for
Hmm.
Quinnipiac.
Yeah, definitely. So, congrats to Cornell on a strong season there. And hopefully they have the same can carry this momentum rolling into the tournament. Maybe they can have some success there. We'll jump right into Hockey East here. No surprise, Blainer's favorite team here, the Maine Black Bears, are the champion of Hockey East after absolutely making a run, um, taking out some good teams too. I mean, they got lucky. They didn't end up having to play Boston College, right? Because Northeastern took them out. But Maine made quick work of Northeastern, uh, beat up UMass Lowell pretty good. I shouldn't have said made quick work of Northeastern. That was a double overtime game. And then a 5-2 convincing win for the championship. What are your thoughts on Maine? I know you like them.
I mean, they're just the greatest mascot team to ever exist. Literally the best colors. I mean, I think they had all the pieces this year to do it. They have an
Mhm.
older team too, so it's like you're not really losing a lot of people like throughout the
Mhm.
season to like the US and TDPHL tournaments and the IHF bullshit. It's just a team. Like you're
Yeah.
not Denver playing freaking UNLV and losing in overtime, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it was just Maine's opportunity to just put together a season and they did. I mean, look at their goalie. Freaking
He's
all
unbelievable.
star. Like what is
That
he?
kid is
Nine
unreal.
three? Like freaking
Yeah.
brick wall.
He is going to be a machine. Uh, it's going to be tough to beat them. I mean,
What
the
is
way they
he
play defense
a
and hit. Go
senior?
ahead.
Sorry.
That's a good question. Let me look real quick. I bet I can find this information really fast. So he is. You ready for this?
Go
He's
for
a
it.
sophomore.
Wow.
That kid is a sophomore.
I wonder if he gets drafted in the is he drafted?
He's not drafted, no.
Yeah, so I wonder if he gets drafted and they say, hey, stay there and
Well,
develop.
so he's already 22 years old, so he can't be drafted. But I have to imagine
Same.
there are going to be kids making there's going to be guys making phone calls to this kid saying, "Hey, what do you think about signing here? What do you think about
Right.
signing here?" So, yeah, he's been a absolute brick wall this season and driving this team to success. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
he should be able to carry this team pretty far in the tournament. So, looking forward to that. NCHC, and then we're going to wrap up with the Big Ten because I think there's a little bit of a storyline there. So the NCHC, which is another loaded conference, Western Michigan takes this one over Denver in double overtime. Um, a fantastic game. I turned it on late. I actually did get to see some of it. I turned it on a little bit late and watched the overtimes as well. But man, I didn't think anybody was going to be able to beat Denver in this. But Western Michigan had a great season. They won the first seed. I think Denver still, if you look at just pure talent, I think they're the best team on paper. Um, but man, they battled. They ended up winning, and here we go. They are the conference champions, and looks like both Denver and so it didn't end up mattering as far as the tournament goes. Both Denver and Western Michigan will get their shot at the national championship. But any thoughts on this one?
No, I mean Western Michigan won the conference, right? So it's or
Yep.
not the
Yep.
conference, like the season
Yeah,
winner.
regular season winner. Yep.
So I think they're pretty loaded, and Denver is kind of the obvious pick as well. It's kind of status quo in that division.
Yep. for sure. So both of them will be in the tournament. That'll be fun to watch too. Denver going in as a 3 seed actually is kind of a storyline too, because they could make some damage there.
I mean, a 3 seed versus what? BU, BC?
Well, they actually get a friendly matchup for them in Providence first,
I see that.
and then it's BC Bentley. So like, I think that the easy pick there is we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I think the easy pick for the Final Four in Manchester is going to be BC and Denver, and then man, that's a tough one too. That's a good game. But let's hit the Big Ten real quick. Michigan State wins the Big Ten. 4-3 again in double overtime. Another great game. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about there. I think this is probably the most balanced conference of every conference. Like every team in this had a shot. Notre Dame finished dead last and upset Minnesota, and then went and played a good game against Michigan State. So I think as far as parity goes, this is the most even conference, and every game was pretty good. What I think is the interesting story here, and it shows you how strong this conference was this year. There were 5 teams from the Big Ten in the tournament. Michigan State obviously gets in as the champion. Minnesota, we knew, was getting an auto bid. Ohio State, Penn State, and I know I saw another one here.
Or
No. They're not a Big Ten team. Was it? So Michigan State, Ohio State, Minnesota, Penn State, and Michigan didn't get in. Okay, so I misspoke. They got 4 teams in there, but that's still pretty darn good for the conference.
Yeah.
Minnesota finishing with having the season they did, even though they had an unlucky bounce against Notre Dame in a first round exit in the conference tournament. I think it makes sense that they're in. I know I've been vouching for Penn State because they had such a strong finish to the season, man, and they battled hard in the conference tournament. And I think it makes sense that they're in, but they don't have an easy road. I mean, we sort of alluded to it. They got to start against Maine, who's one of the best teams in the country, and just has an absolute brick wall in that. So before we jump to the big tournament, any thoughts around the Big Ten?
No, I think the teams that got in deserve to get in. Penn State, it's so hard because like they're riding on one kid showing up every time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Michigan State, they just had so many like different things this year, and like some things that you didn't expect. Where like I'm looking at this Isaac Howard kid, last year had 8 goals, 8. This year has 26. Literally tripled his points or his goals, and has the exact same amount of assists as well. So it's like not only is he playmaking, he's putting it in the freaking back of the net. And that's what you want to see from your sophomore to junior players. So like whatever he did in that offseason, I don't know if it's like gotten the right mindset. I don't know if it was coaching change. I don't know if he trained different. But that's what you need. Like that's what you want to see in player growth too. And he's unsigned from Tampa. I'm looking at this. Like if he progresses this way and like say like gets 70 points next year instead of 50 this year, Tampa might look at him like, hey, what's your entry level situation here? So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think Michigan State definitely it was their tournament to lose, but I think they had a lot of people that stepped up in a good way.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes Michigan State such a good team is, you mentioned that Isaac Howard kid finishing, I think he was top 5 in points by the end of the season, right? But if you look at like the next 50 players, Michigan State doesn't have anybody in there. So they're just strong top to bottom. Everybody chips in every night. But the biggest thing to me, they only allowed 73 goals all season. They're playing very good, sound defensive hockey. If you can keep the puck out of your own net and you've got good goaltending like that, you're going to go far. And I think, again, I picked them preseason, but there's a good case for them to go to the Frozen Four here and potentially win it all. Lots of good teams, but they're definitely in the conversation. So let's jump to the tournament bracket, and we'll run through this fairly quickly because we've got other things to get to. But so the regional starts before the Frozen Four. So for those of you that don't know how this works, it's broken up into 4 regions. The teams are ranked 1 through 4 in that region, and then the team that comes out of every region goes to the Frozen Four. So the Northeast region, it'll be played out of New Hampshire. Boston College 1 plays Bentley 4. Providence 2 plays Denver 3. I know we just talked about this a little bit. I think it's probably BC and Denver going to the next round, and then that's pretty much a toss-up for me. I don't know if you feel strongly about this one at all.
I mean, it's so hard to pick Denver because of like the catastrophic season in their eyes. I think they've had, and especially, I mean, if you highlight like a really bad loss when they only had like 2 people out for the World Juniors, against an ACHA team, like what are we doing? Like what? I don't know if you can actually like let that slide out of your mind, and especially like BC going in, like that's like counterproductive, like confidence, right? Like you're as a team, you're like, oh shit, they lost to an ACHA team, we're gonna roll them. But like you look at that and say they're not as good as us, so let's just mop them. Like let's dial it to 10 and show them that we're better than them. So I think for me, BC is just too dominant this year. They have what's that kid's name? The dangler guy.
I'll give you a minute.
Jack something. Divine.
Well, he's on Denver.
What's the other kid's name then?
Well, BC. So remember, BC's got a lot of these kids who are like high prospects. So they've got Gabe Perreault, they've got Ryan Leonard, who's the Washington kid. I don't know which is the guy that you're thinking
killing
of.
it at the beginning of the season.
The Dangler kid? I don't know who the Dangler kid is.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up later. So, but just know there was one kid on the team that was really good.
Well, I mean, the James Hagens, who's projected top 3 pick. I mean, he's the big name there because he's projected top 3 pick
that
here.
First? That's who I was thinking of.
Because he wasn't the best player on the team, and I didn't.
Started with a J. That's why he went Jack Divine. I'm like, oh man, shit, no, it's not.
I should have picked up on that, but I didn't.
Yeah. You have to know how I think here.
That's on me. That's on me. Yeah. All right, James Hagens and BC.
For me, I just think BC is gonna win this one. Pretty easy.
Actually. Yeah. I think I would have to pick them too. I know they're number 1, but they've got a heck of a team here.
I bet you they put a 10 spot on Bentley.
Ooh, a 10 spot in the tournament. Wow.
That's how bad Bentley is.
I could see that happening.
That's how bad relative to how good BC is. They're not bad hockey players. They're better than me. So much better than me.
I heard it differently.
Bad relatively.
The headline here is Bain hates Bentley. That's the headline. So
they make nice cars though.
Bentleys are nice cars.
Yes.
Can't argue that. Let's jump to the Northwest region. So this is in Fargo, North Dakota. It's going to be number 1 Western Michigan against number 4 Minnesota State. Minnesota State coming in as a 4 seed. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And UMass 3 against Minnesota 2. This is a tough one. I think this is the strongest side of the bracket.
I would transfer to any other school. I would just transfer. Be like, I'll go play for somebody else, please. No, thank you.
Any strong gut pick on who you think's going to come out of this brutal battle?
But UMass. It could be Minnesota. It could be Western Michigan. It could be Minnesota State. Literally any 3 at any given night could win this. I think Minnesota mops up UMass pretty easy. So they're in the championship. Western Michigan, Minnesota. I bet it's going to be quadruple overtime.
I,
Coin
here's
flip.
my here's
I
my
don't know.
thoughts. That game to me, I agree with you, is a total coin flip. Here's my thought. I think Minnesota is going to have an easy time with UMass, like you said, and I think Minnesota State, Western Michigan is going to be such a battle that when they go to play Minnesota, either one of those teams is going to be gassed, just beaten
True.
up and
Yeah.
gassed. So I think the best path to winning this is probably Minnesota.
Yeah. This is definitely the easiest for sure. Oh man.
But
We have to
that
pick
Western
though.
Michigan game, Minnesota State's gonna be tough. I'm going Minnesota.
Minnesota State.
Yeah,
Oh man. God. Okay. Yeah. I'm on the boat. I'm on the boat
yeah,
rowing with you there. I
it's gonna
think
be a
Minnesota.
great
I could
game.
see Minnesota winning it. It's the other side. I have no idea. So I'm gonna pick Minnesota
Yeah,
State because I have no idea.
that's
There's no
gonna be a
statistics
battle.
involved. It's just because I have no idea.
It's gonna be a battle. It's any you could flip a coin a
Yeah.
hundred times and any of that.
Something wild is
So
gonna. It's gonna hit like the ref in the head, go off the post, and just have like an open back door. It's gonna
yeah,
like
right,
that's gonna be the game winner.
right. Oh man, could you imagine the
I would
outrage if that's
literally drink a bottle of pills. There would be no way. Like the way your
oh
season
man.
ends as a senior like that. Oh
That if that's how it went out, I'd be like, nope, I'm coming back as a grad
God,
student. That
yeah.
can't be how it ended.
COVID. I'd release the next strain.
Give me another COVID year.
Give me another year.
It'd be like the Utah quarterback who's like 29 going into his
Yeah,
10th season of college
yeah.
football.
That guy from Georgia that's in his like seventh.
Yeah,
Bo
right.
Nix. Yeah,
Yeah.
Christ.
All right, let's keep it rolling here. We got a lot to get to. So the Allentown region, gonna be played in Allentown, PA. So this is going to be number one Maine against number four Penn State against number two Yukon and number three Quinnipiac. This region to me is Maine's to lose. I mean, I know I'm a Penn State fan. I'm obviously going to be pulling for him here. I think Maine is too deep. Their goaltending is too strong, and I just don't see any of these three teams being able to beat Maine. So to me, it's Maine beating Penn State. I'm going to go Quinnipiac to beat Yukon. I don't really have a good reason why. Just that's my gut
Not a
instinct
hockey
there.
school. That's why. Not a hockey
Because
school.
they're a basketball school. That's why. Yep. I
That's a
just
fair
didn't have the
assessment.
words. So Maine Quinnipiac final. I think Maine's just the class of this side of the bracket. So what do you think?
Yep. I think if Fink from Penn State puts in 9 goals, they'll win. I don't know if one guy can carry a team this deep.
Yeah.
I mean, even Kale McCarr had some supporting cast. He had a goaltender that could keep him in games and just wheel around the net and go down and score.
Yeah.
But I think Maine this year is just they're playing for something else. They're not
Mm-hmm.
playing for contracts or they're not playing for. I mean, I guess they are, but they're not playing for like
Yeah.
the name on the back. They're playing for Maine Black Bears, and Quinnipiac's gonna mop up UConn. I think Maine is just too talented this year, and their goaltender is going to win all the awards and get signed to a gajillion-dollar contract. And hopefully, the Pittsburgh Penguins put him in right away instead
Right.
of waiting for the 9-year development period they usually do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, that would be fantastic. Would love that as a Pens fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as I want to pick Penn State here because they're my team, I just don't think they have the depth. Like you said, they ride on Aiden Fink. They don't have the defense or goaltending to stop a good team. I think if they win a game, it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be like a 6-5 game. Like it's not going to be a 1-0 game. It's going to be like 6-5, 7-4, something like that. They have to outscore and outrace the opponent. So just don't see it happen in a tournament with this skill. So Maine Black Bears out of the Allentown region. That's our pick there. Finally, we'll wrap up with the Toledo here, and then we're gonna take a stab at who we think is taking the Frozen Four the whole tournament this year. Who's going to be the national champion?
Okay.
So the Toledo region is Michigan State number one against number four Cornell, and number two BU against number three Ohio State. Give me your thoughts.
Michigan State easy, BU easy. I don't think Ohio State's got it. Michigan State beat Ohio State in the season series 3-1 and 4-1, 4-1, 3-1, 3-1. Yeah,
You want me to? Do you need me to
I
fact
think it's
check that?
I think it's 3-1. Um,
I
so
believe you.
um, I think they just don't. I mean, BU BC. You get them mixed up all the time. I get them mixed up all the time. They're pretty
Mhm.
much the same thing, just different colors.
Yeah.
Like coin flip here. I think Michigan State. You look at their roster; they have that really good U.S. goalie, Augustine,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he played for the United States development program. I think he won
Mhm.
gold with the junior team. So I I think it just kind of like what Maine is doing. I think Michigan State just has enough guys to push BU enough to
Yeah.
get them off their game. Um, I think BC has more high level talent than BU. BU is usually like the younger kids, like super skilled, like freaking amazing young guys, but they're not always like a well built team nowadays.
Right.
So I think Michigan State is just overall a better team
Mhm.
than BU. So that's why I'm going Michigan State.
Yeah. I mean, you explained it really well. Took a lot of the same thoughts that I had. I think this is Michigan State's bracket to lose. I think they're just the class of this bracket.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think I don't know that Ohio State has the what it takes to get to the end of this thing. I
Yeah.
think BU probably has a little bit of the higher end talent. I think Ohio State's probably a little tired from the conference tournament. I mean, they battled every game. They went to overtime against Penn State. Went to overtime, double overtime to lose it, and to Michigan State. It's a lot of hockey. I think they're probably a little banged up and tired. So
Yeah.
I think the final is going to be Michigan State BU, and I think Michigan State takes it away too. So that leaves us with our Frozen Four. So our Frozen Four that we've projected here is going to be BC against Minnesota and Maine against Michigan State. Who do you think of those four teams is your national champion?
Well, I can't deviate, Jenks. I freaking put this out there in the universe. The universe was like, boom,
Yep.
the chakras and the stars and the freaking shit. They just lined up. They were like, dude, this guy's amazing. I gotta pick the Maine.
Yep.
I can't see another team winning. Because I just love the colors of Maine
Yep.
so much that it blinds me. Like I don't
Yep.
even care about stats go out the window. Like this is how I pick everything.
Yep.
It's just like something about it. It just feels different. So that's why
Yep.
I'm going Maine Black players.
I respect it. I'm following the same logic. My preseason pick to win it all was Michigan State. I'm not going to deviate from that. I'm going to stick with them.
Yeah.
I think they've got as good a shot as anybody in this, but it's going to be an absolute gauntlet. Some of these games are going to be really fun. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of overtime. So you heard it here first. Blaine's national champion, sticking with the Maine Black Bears, and I'm sticking with the Michigan State Spartans. And you can watch these games. So these start this weekend. So the regional semis will be on Thursday, Friday, and the finals games will be on Saturday, Sunday. So tune in. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of good hockey. Hopefully, you get it on your regional networks. I think some of this will be on ESPN too. So try to catch some of these games.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's like different teams in
Mm,
this year's Frozen Four that I think not a lot of people kind of connected to hockey, like UConn, like Cornell's been in and out. They're better on the women's side than the men's. Ohio State like really doesn't like jump out at you as a hockey school.
yeah.
Western Michigan. So I wanna hear your thoughts on. Do you think like with the introduction of the NIL,
Yeah.
Do you think teams are now able to keep local talent such as Minnesota State,
Mhm.
Minnesota, Western Michigan, like that little cluster of states and talent and skill? Do you think they're able to be like, hey, if you come here, not only do we have this freaking sick facility and the hottest girls,
And
we can
Minnesota
give you.
State.
I mean, who knows what happens in Minnesota? I don't know.
I mean, I haven't been to Minnesota, so I'm not
Right.
going to say that,
Or
but
like North Dakota, like what happens?
they're all wearing parkas. That's what
Yeah,
happens. You can't see
oh,
them.
they all like to carve stones, I guess. Um, but do you think like they're like, hey, like we'll get you hooked up with here's a pasta two, here's a I don't know, freaking Totino's commercial for $50,000.
I think I think it's too early to really know for sure how college hockey is going to be affected by the NIL.
Yeah.
I think it depends a lot on probably program tradition and who your alumni are, because a lot of this NIL stuff is going to be funded from alumni donations and the school's ability to outreach and get brand deals and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think in general it favors big schools still. I mean, if you're picking a kid for a national commercial, and you can have the kid from Michigan or you can have the kid from Bentley, like I don't think
Yeah,
that's a hard decision.
it doesn't need to be a national commercial. It could
But
be a regional commercial. Like look at
yeah, but
Erie Otters.
you make
Like
less money, so it's yeah, Erie Otters. I mean,
right.
for sure. But I'm saying if you're selling somebody on this, let's say there's some middle prospect who could be a third liner in at Michigan or could be the first line center at Bentley. We'll use them as an example.
I mean, you're not giving him NIL. You're
If
barely giving
that
him a scholarship.
well, but that's the pitch though. Is like, hey, you come to Michigan, you could potentially get some NIL money, and Bentley's like, dude, we can't afford to give you anything here. Like, we could give you a regional deal, and it'll give you like $2,000 for a commercial, but like, is that enough to sell you on going to a smaller school or?
But if you're getting recruited by Bentley, like I think like you know which way your career is going. Like it even without the NIL, I think I would pick Michigan State just because like I have better opportunities to develop faster
Yeah.
than whereas Bentley, you're like, oh God, I got the ogre of the swamp people looking at me to recruit me for freaking Sweden's under 95 beer league team. Like I mean,
You
what
don't think there's anybody who looks at that opportunity and says, you know what, I could go to Bentley and be a stud and stand out there, or I can go get buried in the lineup at Michigan.
I think there are people, but you're an idiot if you choose Bentley over Michigan State. Like I just don't. I don't know. Like I look at it as like you're a freshman coming in, 18
Yeah,
or 21 after your
yeah,
junior career is over, and you're like,
yeah.
where am I going? What do I want to do? Do I want school, or do I want to try to fight for a Sweden team or a Switzerland team? If I want to fight for a Switzerland team, I'm going to go and play Michigan State's third line because that's the more exposure. Like more scouts are coming there. Do I
Yeah.
want to go to school? Sure, I'll play hockey. I'll be the most freaking nasty person on the team. Great, but you're not really going to go anywhere after that. You might hang out over in Switzerland for a year, but if you're that good at Bentley Jenks, you're gonna move on. You're gonna like go to BC or go to BU or go to something else,
I think
Northeastern.
I think we could with so it's interesting. You made me sort of think of this in a different way. So I'm wondering if what we start seeing is because we expect now with the CHL and NCAA NIL handshake that they basically have done. I think we're going to start seeing more talent in college hockey. So I wonder if there are going to be kids who are like, you know what, I don't want to go in as a freshman and be buried in the lineup of a Michigan State. I want to get playing time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to a Bentley as a freshman and then maybe transfer after that, so I can get a full season of playing time. Because you're probably going to go in, if you're that good that you're considering a big school like that, you're probably going to go into a smaller school and be at least a second line guy.
Yeah.
And if you're like, hey, I can get second line ice time and power play time at a small school, and then, after that, I develop one more year, I could transfer into like Michigan State, something like that. I wonder if we start seeing more of that.
Possibly. I think the main conversation in football does this better than really anybody else. Is like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, if you ever listen to like Mike Tomlin's speeches in his locker room, like he doesn't, like, he wants each player to be accountable. Like, we have the tools and the ability and the coaching staff to make you great.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Not what your parents want, not what your grandma, sisters, nephews, like. So like, I don't, like, that's what needs answered.
Yeah.
And I think that's what guides anybody's decision. And when I went to college, I was like, dude, like I'm done. Like, I didn't play these high level freaking games. So I just wanted to be done with it. And there's nothing wrong with playing ACHA or club in college, just to kind of have something to do, instant friends. And that's what we chose to do. So I don't think there's a wrong answer. D1's D1 is D1. If I have $1 million, I still have $1 million.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would pick Bentley, but I wasn't that good.
You bring up a good point, though. I mean, it's all about what you want, right? So it's going to be different. Every decision is going to be different for every player.
Right.
Sure, the appeal of playing for a big school with a big history and tradition, program culture, all that's there, but you
gotta be prepared to be headstrong.
Yeah.
Third liner that doesn't play, you have to, like, you got to be in it. Like, look at Pelly.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you're not in it.
If you're used to being the guy and you think you're going to go to a big school and be the guy, it's not going to work out.
Yeah. And that wasn't a dig on Pelly. Pelly's fucking sick. I love him.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, you got it. Even he will say it. He's like, he was an asshole.
Yeah.
So you just got to know your limits and go for it. But is that enough college hockey wrap up, Jenks?
Man, this is a college hockey pod, man.
Podcast.
We've got to hit on a couple other things pretty quick, so let's transition.
Yeah, I think a couple highlights from the NHL this past weekend. Pat Maroon, 3-time Stanley Cup winner, retires.
Back-to-back Stanley Cup winner.
Mm-hmm. Insane. I think when you hear Pat Maroon, you don't really think he's a star. He's really not a star. Fourth liner till he dies. He's up, down, and then stayed up. And I think the most famous video of him ever was when Drew Doughty was chirping him like, buddy, you've been here for 10 years and you're still on the fourth line. Like, that's Pat Maroon. Like, he's been fourth liner forever. But the biggest glue guy you can have on your team. And I think it was a cool moment to see him retire in St. Louis, his hometown, his home team. I thought that was pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the guys love having Pat Maroon around. And I don't know if you saw, they did he's with, I want to check this because I don't want to misspeak. He's playing in Chicago this year. And they were just in St. Louis. And St. Louis did a video tribute to basically say thanks for, everything you did for us the year that we won the cup in St. Louis. And you could see him getting emotional in it. So, he's a glue guy, a huge locker room guy, goes out there, lays the body, plays in the dirty areas, does whatever he has to do to help out his team. And I'm sure there's just so many guys in the NHL that would say that Pat Maroon's a class act and such a good guy and somebody you want to have around your team. And he made a nice little career for himself. Never was a huge point guy. Always found himself in that, like you said, third, fourth line role, grinding it out. Some huge tilts. I mean, he's a huge guy, just a monster. But made a nice little career for himself there. And, the back-to-back-to-back Stanley Cup run, 3 in a row, is unbelievable. And not something that many people out there can say, especially in this age. So I think congrats to a great career for Pat Maroon, and he'll be missed by a lot of the NHL players, I'm sure.
Yep. And you don't see many people at the end of their careers get kind of shopped around to those teams that are like the favorites to win the Stanley Cup, unless you're like, hey, dude, like you've been here fucking forever. Why don't you go get a cup? And he did it in his last 3 years in a row. So congrats to him. I'm sure his family's gonna love the time off and time out of the rink, but I'm sure he's a funny dude. I'm sure he'll land on some sort of podcast or TV show here in the future. But speaking of the Blues, you know how bad the Blues are? The Blues are that team that are so bad that they're good. They are in a wild card position I don't even understand. This is how they won the Stanley Cup that year. Like their number one guy, Cairo, like who did they get from the Rangers? Buchnevich?
Oh, you're just butchering all these names, but I love it. Keep going.
So I like they have Jordan Binnington that kind of is average this year. Why, Jenks?
Dude, first of all, Jordan Binnington, you don't ever get just, steady, 27 save, 3 goals. No, there is no steady Jordan Binnington. It is a 40 save shutout, or he lets in 3 of the first 5 shots. That's it. It's never in between. The most streaky goalie in the league by far, and, plays with a burning fire pit in his stomach, trying to fight everybody all the time. The guy's just a lunatic. But when he's on, man, he's on. I don't know what it is with this Blues team. They just seem to have the right group. They don't have any prolific scoring. They don't have, they're missing some of their better players right now. Like Parayko is out.
They're bad.
This team is just, they're getting it done somehow. I don't know how, but they're getting it done. I mean, I think Kyrou and Thomas are good players. I don't think they are.
You're just saying that.
No, I think they're good players. Saw them play in the OHL. They're not superstars by any means. I think you sort of still would hope to have like one guy on your team that you'd point to and say, that's our guy. That's a stud.
Right.
They're just finding a way. Like, what is their last 10 right now? They're 8-1-1 in their last 10.
That's what I mean. They're just so average. It's crazy. This is what they did when they won this cup. They just won like 95 games, being the most terrible team to ever exist, and then they won it.
I mean, is this like the Islanders' key to success, where you just play boring hockey and chip in 2 or 3 goals and you win 3-1? Like, is this what's going on here?
I think we have to classify as Islander as a style of team.
Are you playing Islanders hockey? Just make me puke.
So boring. But
I don't want to watch it.
The playoff push this year is crazy. I think Ottawa, we talked to this, Ottawa's a lock. On the other side, I think Minnesota's a lock. And then there's like 3 or 4 teams that if you go on a little bit of a skid, you're toast. And St. Louis, you just like, that's what's tough about trying to get that last playoff position. You literally need to start cranking it up. You just got to go. And I think I have 2 teams, one for each division, that I think could possibly sneak in if St. Louis and if the Canadians lose some games.
Okay.
First one, I think is kind of obvious, the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I say that And I don't really understand how they go from literally last in the league to in a fighting position, except for that they got the best player in the world, and that's JT Miller. Maybe Zigo, he's like in the locker room just like punching faces, like we're making playoffs. Mac, like the
Wake
Tiki
up,
Blinders. Yeah. We're making playoffs. Whack. We're fucking making playoffs. Whack. Just fucking like let's go here. Maybe that's what they needed, Jenks.
I'm sure that was a great move for the team, and he gives them another offensive weapon for a team that was struggling to score to start the year. I mean, they have clawed their way back into this thing, and I think part of it too is the Eastern Conference is just such a shit show. Nobody is having this other than like the Capitals, but nobody is having this breakaway season where they're saying, nope, we're the best team in the conference.
Yeah.
There's so many teams that are within look at Montreal. So if we look, Montreal's the last wild card right now. They have 75 points. There are 7 teams within 6 points of a playoff spot. That is unbelievable for this point in the season. That's just ridiculous. And one of those teams is the Pittsburgh Penguins with a losing record.
You can't say that.
So
we're not allowed to make playoffs.
We are a losing record team, and we are still 6 points out of it. We're not making playoffs, but just to prove the point, the Rangers have everybody else to thank for making their way back into this. They, on a normal season where there would be some teams with, mid 80s points at this point, the Rangers are out of it. They're struggling. But because everybody's been sort of in this middling state, I don't really know what to call it, they have a chance. Ottawa's sort of grabbed a hold of that first one. The Jackets and Islanders are still sort of in the mix with a few games in hand. But it's really anybody's game. Somebody's got to get hot and grab this last spot here. So if anybody can do it, it's Shesterkin and JT Miller.
Yeah, and I would hate to play them in the first round because you would face Matt Rempe and he would give everybody 95 concussions. Like if you're Ovi, you're like, hey, let's maybe crank it down a little bit. I got the record. Let's not play the Rangers, please. I just don't want to. But on the other side, you got Brady Tkachuk stuff. But going over to the other conference, I think Calgary is in a weird position. And I say that as in, are they good? Are they not good? And I think the one question that we have to answer, Jenks, is will their goalie, rookie, Calder, contender, goalie, Wolf, if he stays healthy, maybe he's the next Demko and just blows out his knees and just says, hey, I'm Johnny Quick.
Oh, I hope not. I hope he stays healthy because that kid looks like a stud.
If he's not, though, do you think Calgary even exists in the playoffs?
If Dustin Wolf wasn't as good as he is, Calgary is down by Nashville right now. They're one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the conference. They just don't have the roster to compete like this. And I'm looking at their goals for right now. They are tied for second. Okay, there's one team with less. They are tied for second least goals for in the league, and they're in a playoff spot. You can't tell me this is not Dustin Wolf willing this team into a playoff spot. If they make the playoffs, it's going to be because of him.
Well, the worst thing is remember Huberdeau having 100 points that one year? I'm looking at their top 5 point scorers, and that team would be sick 8 years ago.
Right.
That's what you don't want, as a team. You don't want your oldest guys having the most amount of points. And it's just, you need somebody in there to mix it the fuck up. Excuse my French. Just have somebody young within this roster. And I think that's Dustin Wolf.
Yeah.
But we know how flaky goalies are, and it's hit or miss with that guy. But
They don't
Anybody
have
else you see as a contender? As final thoughts?
for like a wild card
Yeah.
spot here. Are we talking? Yeah, I think Vancouver's going to struggle. I mean, they're sort of in the mix, but I think they're going to struggle to finish the year. But other than that, I think Utah's probably too far out of it. They're only 1 point back of Vancouver, but they're 6 points back of the Blues, and this we already talked about the Blues. Somehow this Blues team is just going to keep winning.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough to get in there. It's not like the East where it's open season. It's sort of the picture's starting to become clear in the West here. So maybe Calgary, maybe Vancouver, maybe Utah, but after that, it's over.
Yeah, I agree with you there. OV clock, we're down to 8 or down to 7 now.
Yeah.
8-7. Maybe pay a little tribute to Crosby, as he also broke another record. Is passed Mary Lemieux for most points in for a single team.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy guy, or passed Gretzky, I think, for most points in a single team with a single team.
Yes. Yep.
Gretzky, yeah.
Yep.
Crazy what those two guys are doing this season. So best segment of the podcast, writing on the wall, pick Jenks. Saturday, March 29th. Oh God, March 29th.
We're almost done with March. Holy crap.
1/4 of the year done.
Great.
Let's hear your pick.
Well, I was really hoping that there was going to be a Capitals game on Saturday because that would have been an easy pick for me. Uh-huh. So, unfortunately, they're not playing. So, had to pick a different team here. An interesting storyline, I think, right now is the Edmonton Oilers. They are without Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl for at least a week here. Both those guys a little bit banged up. Don't really know what's going on there. Hopefully they're both minor injuries and these guys come back soon.
Load management.
And it didn't seem to matter last night as Ryan Nugent-Hopkins ended my fantasy season with a hat trick. That mother, whatever. But man, I think this team is, a little bit banged up as we're coming into the end of the season, and I wonder if that's going to affect them at all. On the other side of the ice, we just talked about them, the Calgary Flames. They're fighting for their playoff lives, and I think this game is going to mean a lot to them. Kind of a gamble. We don't really know if Draisaitl and McDavid are going to be in the lineup here. And it is in Edmonton, so really, really tough to see. I don't think they're going to want to hold McDavid and Draisaitl out of a home game as we're getting so close to the playoffs. So if those guys are at all able to go, I think they're going. But man, if you're Calgary, you've got to be hungry and you've got to be fighting for everything here. So I'm going to say that with McDavid and Draisaitl a little bit banged up and Dustin Wolf just being an absolute stud, and he's probably going to get the nod for this game, I think they find a way to shut down Edmonton without their two studs, and Calgary gets a huge road win here as they fight for their playoff lives. So I'm going Flames over Edmonton Oilers on Saturday.
And a huge boost of confidence if they get that W, I'd say.
Absolutely.
I'm going kind of in the same vein here. Team we already talked about, the Senators, Blue Jackets having a remarkable season as well. First matchup of the season for these two teams. And of course, it's a big one going into the playoff push here. Senators got to keep up pace with at least having a little bit of buffer room for the end of the season to clinch a playoff spot. Columbus needs to throw down and see if they can make a magical run into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, I love Columbus. I love how they built their team. With these young studs of Fantilli and Kent Johnson kind of leading the charge here. And I think with the way they're playing lately, it's just not getting it done. I think they've kind of hit a wall that they just need to push through if they get a chance. And the Senators might be that wall, but I just don't see Stützle, Batherson, Cousins, to Chuck. I don't see how you can get past that sort of wall. So I'm picking Ottawa I'm picking them by 3 goals
Ooh.
in Columbus.
Puck line action. I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's it for this podcast. Jenks, any last thoughts?
One final shout out. Good luck to all the high school teams going to the national tournament in California this week. If you are there, keep an eye out for your favorite ref and go say hi, as you'll be flying out there. What, tomorrow? You're heading out there?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah,
So
don't
keep
yell
an
at me
eye
too
out.
bad.
Say hi to Blaine. Be nice to him. He's got feelings.
Yeah, I'm a human.
He's an emotional guy.
Right. All right. Make sure to follow us on Spotify. What is it? Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Black Aces Hockey Podcast. And I am your co-host, Blaine Adams. I'm right here, as always, with your co-host, Nick Jackson. We're out of you later.